Thandiwe, you want to go ahead and start it up?
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We are going to go ahead and get started. And today we have an interesting topic um, for the tax savvy entrepreneur. And so we're going to be talking with Asha Wilkerson from the Wilkerson Law Office. I apologize. And she's going to be telling us some great tips, especially it's tax season. But it's also for small business owners who are, kind of wondering, okay, what structure do I use? What's going to be the most beneficial, and how do I leave a legacy? So I'm really excited about this topic. If you don't already, please get your notepads out and get ready to take notes. So before we do that, let's go ahead and we'll do a brief introduction before we get started. So Jason, did you want to go ahead and kick that off?
Definitely. Everybody, if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Jason Matthews, President and CEO of Matthews Financial Insurance Solutions. Here, really excited about this topic. If you guys don't know, we have our firm. We help people with all their insurance and financial planning needs. I specialize in working with people who come across a windfall of money, either through an inheritance, settlement, switch jobs, just retired, or their business have grown substantially. So I think this is great, especially for those people who have grown, who have business has been growing or is about to start a business or thinking about starting a business, on different strategies that Ms. Wilkerson can say and help you how to properly structure your business without getting sued. You want to pay attorneys on the front end before you pay on the back end because it's a whole lot cheaper. Am I right?
And you were so right. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Fantastic. And hello, everyone. My name is Thandiwe Cato, also with Matthews Financial and Insurance Solution, based in Oakland, California. Our strategy is to make sure that your current money habits are aligning with your future goals, because we know sometimes that does not always happen. So this is one of our monthly workshops. We do this every single month. And we're super excited, again, like I said, to have Miss Wilkerson go ahead and kick this month of March, which actually we're almost done. So we're at the end of the month. Bear with us. And so I'll go ahead and also let you introduce yourself before you go into your presentation.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much. So my name is Asha Wilkerson. I am a licensed attorney in California, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my background once we get started. I'm excited to be here. Thank you all at Matthews Financial for the invitation to be here and to participate. I am not a CPA or a tax planner. I'm a business attorney, but those two things or three things really do go hand in hand. And so my goal tonight is to get you to understand how you can use your LLC or your corporation to really step up your financial planning game, how you can save more money in taxes, and how you can use these tools that are really quite easily available at our disposal to plan the life that you want on the business side of things. So when I do presentations, I really like to have questions in the middle because it makes me feel like I'm talking with y'all and not at y'all. So if you have any questions, you want to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, then certainly do that as we go along. And I can't wait to get started.
Fantastic. And did you have the hosting capabilities? Did you want to go ahead and share your screen for your presentation?
Absolutely. Okay. I didn't know if there was something else I needed or you all needed to do first. So here we go. So I just called this presentation the Business Foundation Basics, and that's essentially what it is, right? These are the basic things that you need to think about if you're planning on running a business. So some of you may be sole proprietors, some of you may have LLCs, some of you may have corporations. You may or may not know how to use them to get the maximum financial planning benefit. So I hope that I could share a little bit about that with you tonight. And again, feel free to ask me any questions that you have. So again, my name is Asha. I am a 7-time Californian super lawyer, rising star. What does that even mean anyway? It means that this really popular magazine that probably only attorneys care about they get together every year and they pick out people that they think are notable. So rising star means that I'm under 40 and you either have to be under 40 or in practice less than 10 years. I've now been in practice more than 10 years, but I'm still under 40. So that's I'm still on that rising stars list. I am also a tenured college educator. So I teach full-time at a community college and also run this business. So teaching is something that I love to do. And I've been in business for myself for 10 plus years. I've counseled over 100 clients on business and legal matters. So all of those things, in my perspective, give me some background and some knowledge and qualification to sit here and talk with you tonight. So especially for me, I'm really passionate about giving tools to under-resourced communities. So what that means for me is primarily Black and brown folks, but not just, right? But folks who have been left out of the conversation because either the resources are hard to get to, the information is hard to get to, or once you know what you're supposed to do, then it becomes really expensive. But so much of that has caused us to think with this kind of deficit mindset or the scarcity mindset. So I just wanted to start out with this. Before you can become a millionaire, you must learn to think like one. You must learn how to motivate yourself to counter fear with courage. So if this topic seems very scary, which a lot of times it is, a lot of times people don't take the next step to formalize their business because there's a little bit of fear or hesitation because you're just not sure what to do. So I'm going to encourage you to counter that fear with courage and also knowledge. So let's take a second, put your phone on silent if you can, if you're distracted by something else going on your computer screen, just give me about 30 minutes of your time. And I think it'll really be worth it for you. You'll get a lot out of it. Okay, so this is for you if you are a current business owner or even an aspiring business owner. You don't have to have your business together yet. This will actually help you figure out how you want to get started. If you're seeking to understand the advantages and drawbacks of sole proprietorships, LLCs, and corporations. And then also, this is for you if you're looking to run your business with strategy. I've noticed even myself when I first started out, right, it was just such a goal to get to the business and to be in business. The second part of that, though, is now that we have a business, let's actually run it with some purpose and strategy, make it efficient so it can do what we want it to do. In my opinion, from me to you, the goal is not just to start a business, but to have a business that really thrives and works for you. We all know those folks who have been business owners who have worked until the day they died, right? They didn't have a retirement plan, put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, but didn't ever figure out how they would be able to let it go. We don't want that, right? We want our businesses to work for us just as much as we work for our businesses. So my mission is to build a business and leave a legacy. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for me. That's what I want for our community. Build a business and leave a legacy. So today I'm going to share with you the importance of having proper legal foundation. Like, why should you even care about this? What does it do for you? What does it not do for you? Then I'm going to tell you the differences between sole proprietorships, LLCs, and the different types of corporations. There are a few different types of corporations. And then I want to help you understand the next steps that you need to take to build a business and to leave a legacy. So starting with the first one, a business entity provides separation between you and your business. Your sole proprietorship doesn't do that. Your sole proprietorship is an extension of you. It does not have any legal protection. If your business gets sued, it's you getting sued, right? But if you have an LLC or a corporation and you are operating as in the capacity of CEO of that business, it's the business that takes on that liability for you. What does that mean? In tangible terms, that means if the business has a debt, that debt or that legal liability stays with the business. You get sued because you didn't perform on a contract, whatever, life happened and you weren't able to show up and put the speakers on the stage for the concert, right? The place found another person or company to provide speakers, but it costs them an extra $3,000 and you don't want to pay it. They go to court, the judge says you got to pay it. That liability, that debt stays with the business. It doesn't attach to you personally. On the flip side, your personal assets will stay with you. So if you own a house, if you have a retirement account, you have any other assets, they are not subject to any of the business debts. So same situation, judge says you owe some money. It's the business that owes the money, not you personally. I think another thing, especially with healthcare being so expensive right now, I have seen situations or heard of situations where medical bill collectors have been trying to come after individuals and they can't come after your business assets if you have an LLC or a corporation. But if there's no separation between you you and your business, then they can certainly get access to anything that is in your name. Okay. So once you create an LLC or a corporation, you'll be able to use the business to protect your personal assets in case of a lawsuit. You can sign contracts in the name of the business. You can sell all of your business or part of your business. I think that's one thing that we don't think about very often. You know, these tech companies start up, and a lot of them start up with the intention that they are going to sell their business one day, right? It's not something that they're looking to do for the rest of their lives. Like, I'm going to start it up and my goal is to get bought out by Google in the next 5 years. That's a perfectly valid exit strategy. Is that something you can implement in your business? You can't sell a sole proprietorship, but you can sell an LLC or a corporation. You could sell a part of your company, right? Or you could sell the whole thing. You also get investors to take you seriously. If you have a sole proprietorship and you are looking for seed money to, I don't know, start a workout studio or to open up a shop to sell kids' clothes, right? If you're doing it all in your name as a sole proprietor, any investor that's been around the block a couple of times are going to look at you and think that you don't know what you're doing because you haven't taken the steps to form your business. Also, business investors want to invest in the business. They don't want to invest in you, right? They're not handing you the check. They're not handing Asha Wilkerson a check, right? They're handing the Wilkerson Law Office a check to carry out the activities in that business. So think about that. You can also take advantage of tax deductions and write-offs. Now, to be fair, there are some that are available to sole proprietors, but the Internal Revenue Code, the tax code, is really written to benefit business owners. The reason being, say it again.
Can you say that one more time for the audience to hear that?
Yeah, the Internal Revenue Code, the IRS code, the tax code that we all have to pay attention to, you know, every April 15th is written to take it, or it's written for business owners, right? Business owners are the ones that are able to take advantage of it. So you hear it always comes around every election. We hear, you know, Republicans and they're touted as just caring about big business, and we get mad at them. And then Democrats supposedly care about people. And it's not really, I mean, it is Republicans, but it's not just that. It's actually that our tax code is written to benefit business owners. So we can make changes to that, but also the same things that we get upset for these big corporations for doing, because even though it's legal under the tax code, we can still take advantage of those same kinds of tax write-offs and those same principles. You just got to know what you're doing. And actually, you don't need to know, your CPA needs to know, your tax preparer needs to know, right? So you can take more advantage of more tax deductions and tax write-offs. You can contribute 2 times to your retirement. And that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, if you're doing 500 as an employee, you can do 500 as a business owner. You might be able to, right? But you can also contribute on both sides. If you have a corporation, you're thinking of your corporation just like you would as if you're working for another company. So you are making contributions on behalf of the corporate, you're matching, right? Corporate matching. And then you as an employee can also contribute to your retirement. There's something called a SEP-IRA, self-employed pension, I think, or simplified employee pension plan, right? Which is an IRA, so individual retirement account. The maximum contribution just increased this year for SEP-IRA to $58,000. So you are able to contribute $58,000, up to $58,000, or 25% of your income, your revenue, for your ownership share, whichever is lower, right? So if 25% of your, your earnings, your revenue, right, is $25,000, you could put all of that into the SEP-IRA. If you're making over that amount, more than 25% times 4, to get to 58,000, you could contribute all of that 58,000. I don't even know if that just made sense what I said, but I think you get what I'm trying to say, right? So you have options when you have a business entity, more options than you have if you are a sole proprietor. You can also grow and take your business to the next level. You can grow with a corporation because you can, sell some shares to investors or to business partners. As an LLC, you can bring people in as business owners. You can't do that as a sole proprietor. And then also for me, just being able to reduce anxiety, knowing that I'm legally protected, right? It doesn't mean that something bad isn't going to happen. It just means you'll be in the best position to defend yourself if something bad does happen. And not only that, like really with a business, you have much more control over where your dollars go than you do as a sole proprietor. You get to make that choice as they come in, and it also helps to reduce your taxable income. But I also don't want to give you the impression that I'm opposed to paying taxes. I think that's really important. Every time I drive down the streets here in Oakland and hit a pothole, I'm like, dang, right? That's the tax dollars. We need them. We need them to fund schools. But at the same time, there are advantages that we can take in the tax code if we get savvy and learn what we're doing. That'll help us keep money in our pockets. And the reason why we get that benefit as business owners is because we also become employers. Right. And that's what the government is looking to reward businesses that also become employers, because it's not just you keeping that money, even though we talk about Bezos like a big dog, right? And the low amount of taxes that Amazon is paying. But look at how many people Amazon employs, right? That's the reason why the company gets the tax write-offs that they do. But they're available to all of us. So let me talk to you about the differences between sole proprietorships, LLCs, and corporations. And in presenter mode, I'm not able to see if there are any questions or comments. So Thandiwe, if you see them, then, just shout them out to me.
Sure. I'll let you know if I see any questions.
Perfect.
So if anyone does have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A portion of it.
Thank you. Okay. So sole proprietorships. Most people know about sole proprietorships. It's just like you get up one day, you're like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sell some earrings. Okay, cool. You just do it in your name. Or even if you get a fictitious business name or a DBA, it's like a nickname for whatever project it is that you're doing. There's still no separation between you and the business, right? So you are the business. There's no registration necessary. So a lot of people start out as a sole proprietor just to test their idea. But you still have to pay taxes on the business income. But it is quick and easy to get started with. So I think that's why a lot of people I know that's why a lot of people start it, right? You don't have to register any particular place. There's no filing fee for it. You just get up and get started. Of course, we've already talked about the risk, though, of being a sole proprietor.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. I saw we had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does this apply to Canadians too?
I know Canada has its own type of business structure. I know that they do have corporations, but I don't know the different types of businesses that Canada has available. And Canada's tax code is going to be very different than the US tax code. Just because the economy is based, it's a socialist, right? Or at least more socialist than our capitalist economy. So I don't think that they're different, and I don't know exactly what those differences are. So thank you for that. Okay, so LLCs versus corporations, so limited liability companies. Okay, so LLCs and corporations, they both offer you legal protection. So there's a separation in both between you and your business. But the differences in terms of ownership come because an LLC, it's all the same type of ownership. If we go into business together, we're just members. We're called members. And there's no distinction between the kind of ownership that we have. There might be a distinction in the percentage of ownership that we have, but our rights are still going to be the same, right? In a corporation, there are two different types of owners of a corporation. Both have shares. So there's the shareholders that have the preferred stock. So those would be the folks who started the company, got in on the ground floor. They have the real say, the real voting power, right? And then there are the folks that have common stock, which is like you and me when we buy shares in Google or Apple. We're technically owners of Google and Apple and Amazon if you can afford it, right? But we don't have any say. They send out a little thing, you can vote every year at the annual shareholders meeting, but we don't have any say, right? What does that do for the corporation? That allows the corporation to raise money, and then you in return are looking for a dividend, right? It's a kickback on the profit. But you're not an owner. If you are the shareholder, that common stock shareholder, you don't have any power or any real say. But it's a good opportunity, like if you're thinking of creating a business that you want to get bought out by a bigger company like a Google or a Microsoft or something like that, right? Or if you need different types of investors and you want to spread out the kind of ownership that the investors can have. Okay. Because of this different type of ownership, corporations are much more complicated to get started, and they require some maintenance in the form of annual board meetings and annual reports, right? Whereas LLCs are pretty simple. They're not very complicated. If you have a multi-member LLC, meaning you have business partners, then you should have an operating agreement anyway, but that's where the real work comes in, to try and figure out what's going on in your operating agreement. It's like your prenup to the marriage. The equivalent in a corporation is called your bylaws, that says what can and cannot happen, what's going to be your exit strategy, what if someone wants to sell, does the remaining partners, do they get a say and a vote? How do we vote? What if there's a tie? What are our roles and responsibilities? Those things should be spelled out in the operating agreement if it's an LLC, or in the bylaws if it's a corporation. But other than that, LLCs don't have any annual reporting requirements. You're still going to have meetings, right, with your team, but there's nothing that you have to report out. Tax-wise, this is where you want to talk to a CPA or an enrolled agent with the IRS to help you figure out what is the best way to have your entity taxed. Okay, so the default for an LLC is a pass-through taxation or flow-through taxation, meaning it gets taxed just like it does as a sole proprietorship, not necessarily at the same rate. You can do some things that change that rate, but any revenue that you earn through, or any taxable revenue that you have in your LLC, you were personally responsible for paying the taxes on that LLC. Whereas a corporation, the default form of a corporation, the corporation pays its own taxes at a much lower rate than we pay it as individuals. I think it's like 15% for corporations, and then we are 27, 29, depending on where you fall in that tax bracket, right, as individuals. And then I'll talk about this S election that you can do with an LLC or a corporation that changes the taxation so that it is a flow through like an LLC. And I can't tell you what's right or what's wrong. I will tell you, though, to meet with a tax advisor and maybe a financial planner and think 4, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and think about not just where you are right now, but what is your business going to look like in 5 years, and what's going to be the best thing for you to do then. LLCs are more similar to sole proprietorship. So if you are a single member LLC, so you're the only owner of your LLC, that's going to feel very much like operating a sole proprietorship, even though legally it's different. Corporation is going to feel a little bit different, right? Because you have more requirements and have to have those annual meetings, even if you are a party of one. So don't forget about that. Let's see. Okay, I see some
questions.
Yep.
Awesome.
So what common mistakes have I seen with LLCs having multiple partners? Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So I'll give you an example of a business here in Oakland. And just in general, right? Anytime, think about it like a marriage, right? Anytime we get together with somebody, it's all golden, right? We're happy, we're excited, we're thinking about how we're going to grow this business, how many millions of dollars we're going to make, and we're not thinking about what could possibly go wrong. So a couple of things I have seen is what happens when one partner is not pulling their weight, right? What is the recourse? I've seen in the same restaurant what happens when partners have promised that they were going to contribute a certain amount of capital and they didn't, right? So what happens to that person's ownership share? And what you can, you can change that depending on how you set it up, right? So if you are requesting people to put $20,000 into your business to come on board, make sure that $20,000 is put into the business account before you change the documents and have them become an owner, right? Or put a deadline in there that says if X amount of money is not received by whatever date, they will no longer be an owner. Thinking also, what happens if 2 years down the road, the business needs an infusion of capital? Who's responsible for that? Is everybody responsible? Nobody responsible? What happens if one person, it's that kind of stuff, right? Because the same thing that happens in relationships when we feel like we're doing more work than somebody else, but someone else is getting the same benefit, that doesn't feel right? It doesn't feel good. So you want to think about that. Another thing to think about too is, do you actually need a partner as a business owner? Like, do you need a partner, or can you take a loan from somebody? Like, can you pay the money back, or do they need to be a partner in order to get their money? I would say voting, try not to have an even number, or if it's an even number, one person needs to have majority voting power so that things don't end in a tie. Thinking about also, if you have multiple business partners and somebody's married or people are married, what are you going to do if you die or the business partner dies? California is a community property state. So if the business is started after the marriage, then the husband or the spouse's interest, the wife's interest, should pass on to the remaining spouse, right? So, but what if I had this question with a client of mine, they're in construction. And even though the wife, one of the wives was, helping to run the company, but wasn't an owner on the paperwork. And I asked the guys, well, do you want to go into business with your partner's wife to do construction? And they were like, they don't know anything about construction. I'm like, yeah, you're right. They don't. So what do we do? Right. In that situation, we set up an agreement that the spouse, the remaining spouse would get like payments over the next 2 or 3 years, equivalent to the remaining partner's salary, remaining equivalent to the deceased business owner's salary, so that at least the family wouldn't be left, having to like make up the thousands of dollars worth of income each month, right? So there are different ways to get around that. Also, what happens if one person wants out? Can they just sell it? Does it have to be approved? That kind of stuff. So unfortunately, you want to think about all of the stuff that could go wrong. But even things like, money is great. How often are we taking money out of the business? How often are we paying ourselves? Is there a maximum salary? What comes first? We got to pay the bills and the employees. How do we decide to grow? That kind of thing. Some stuff you'll figure out as you go, but the more stuff you can think through ahead of time while you are in good spirits, then the better it becomes, and less amount of time you'll fight later on. And then also, once you're running the business, look at your operating agreement every year to make sure it still reflects what you are currently doing. And if it doesn't, update it and change it to reflect what's happening. So the restaurant that I keep mentioning, they had their original operating agreement, but 3 years later, nobody was following the operating agreement. So each person wanted to enforce different parts of it, but the mediator that we went to was like, how can you pick and choose? They want to pick and choose too. So it really didn't do very much good.
Another perfect example of what you're talking about with the conflict of that is the Wynn Hotel. Everybody knows the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas, but it was a huge conflict with Steve Wynn, which is the face of the company, and his partner when Steve Wynn was going through his divorce and the shares of the company, and how now he was losing control, his controlling interest of the Wynn empire, since they do have other hotels, especially in China and other places. So that makes an excellent point. Mm-hmm. Think about different issues that come across that we don't think about on an everyday basis. We always think everything's gonna be grand and everything's gonna be in the honeymoon stage, but sometimes it gets in the nitty gritty where things ain't like how we thought it was gonna be in our dream world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dreams and reality are often different. Next question is why, or does this apply to landlords? Yes, absolutely. So what's the best ownership type? So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a best ownership type. I think it depends on how you are running your business. So I tell people who own property, I would put the property inside of an LLC. Generally speaking, I would need to talk to you specifically to know exactly what your situation is. But the reason being, again, especially if you have multiple properties, or let's say you have properties in different states, tenants, it's a pretty litigious area, right? There's something goes wrong with the tenant. I don't know. You can just imagine, right? And you might want to consider putting either each property in a separate LLC or grouping them together, because if something happens, and again, let's say you go to court, you get an unfavorable judgment, have to pay, they're looking at the assets of everything that is owned by that entity. So you can protect your personal assets or protect the other properties from each other by putting everything in its own LLC or by grouping them together into smaller smaller groupings, so that you don't have like this huge pot of money, right? In case something happens. Now, the flip side of that is if you have every house in a different LLC, then that's a lot more maintenance and it might not be worth it, right? But to definitely put the property in something separate from yourself. So if for whatever reason you have to offload it, it doesn't affect your personal history because it's owned by the LLC once you do the title transfer. And then after you start doing it for a while, your business will build up its own business credit and you won't have to use your own personal credit anymore. So, and then if you have something like an investment business, like a real estate investing business, then that's a little bit different. That could be an LLC, but it also could be a corporation, just depends on how you want to run it, right? So, but I would talk to probably a CPA that is well-versed in dealing with the type of property, whether it's commercial or, residential property, and see also what it looks like on the tax end, because either business structure, LLC or corporation, will protect you legally. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about S-corps versus or C-corps and S-corp. So I hear these questions get thrown around all the time, right? The default corporation is a C-corp. That's just when you file a corporation with the Secretary of State, it's a C-corp. There isn't really such a thing as an S-corp. It doesn't really exist. An S-corp is a tax designation. So your C-corp is filing the S election. It's like a chapter S or something like that. It's with the tax code. And so when you go to file taxes, you are electing to be taxed as an S-corp. It's just a tax designation. It doesn't mean that you don't have a corporation. It just means that you are choosing to be taxed like an LLC, meaning that any revenue in the business will be passed down to you individually. Again, not a tax preparer, not a CPA, but I do know that sometimes LLCs will choose to be taxed as S-corp. So you can go both directions. An LLC can be taxed as an S-corp or vice versa to get rid of that self-employment tax that is applicable to LLC owners, which is the same as with sole proprietors. But that is a question that you want to talk to a CPA about, and they can really guide you into that. So C-corps are like Google, Apple, Uber, right? A C-corp is the one that can sell off its shares to investors like us. S-corps can't do that. S-corps can't sell off the shares. S-corps, I think, have a maximum of 100 owners that you can have. C-corps, I don't think have a maximum. Okay, so those are some of the basic differences. It's not going to make a difference for the attorney in terms of how they file for you, because you can choose that S election later when you get ready to file for taxes. So you don't have to know right away if you're thinking that you want to do a corporation. And then another question I get sometimes too is, what are benefit corporations or B Corps, right? So this little symbol over here, I'm sure you all have seen it. If you have ever walked into Whole Foods, I'm sure you've seen it on half of the food and supplies in Whole Foods. And benefit corporations and certified B Corps are actually two different things, but they're similar in terms of their purpose. So traditional benefit corporation it's a C Corp. I'm sorry, it's not a C Corp. It's a traditional corporation, but then it has a modified obligation and higher standards around purpose, accountability, and transparency. So if you're filing that with the Secretary of State, and I wouldn't advise you to file it on your own, I'd advise you to get an attorney. There is a particular, you can say this is a benefit corporation, and then you have to sort of attest to, this is what our mission is, and this is how we plan to handle ourselves, right? A certified B Corp is different, similar in terms of its stance, but it's with a different entity. So to be certified as a B Corp, you do have to file in California or whatever state you're in as a benefit corporation. And then the next step is to go to the certified B Corp company and complete their questionnaire and adhere to their standards, which basically says, again, we're the kind of business that wants to balance purpose and profit. So you're still making a profit, but you're telling the world that we care about people and we have a really good purpose, and we're committed to, taking care of our workers and customers and suppliers, right? As opposed to a C Corp that's just like, I'm just out here, right, trying to live, right? They may be doing good, but they're not legally obligated to do good because they didn't sign themselves up for that. Neither one of these corporations or these types of corporations is tax exempt. So I get another question quite frequently, should I do a nonprofit? Or people think that if they want to do good, right? Like I want to, start an after school program and I want it to be a nonprofit because I want to do good, right? Because that's what they think it has to be to have an after school program, or to have a library or like a book club or a bookstore, right? But you can still be a corporation and do good without having to go through the hoops of becoming tax exempt. But also, if you're really looking for the benefits of being tax exempt, then you would need to do a nonprofit corporation. But I'll tell you this too, nobody owns a nonprofit. Like you can start a nonprofit, but you don't own that bad boy. So if you're thinking that you want a nonprofit for tax advantages, it also doesn't advantage you. It doesn't advantage the corporation. It doesn't advantage the nonprofit. It just allows people to donate and to get, to have that be tax deductible, that donation. But it doesn't do anything for the business. You still have to file a tax return, a Form 990. You still have to report everything. They're looking at you more because the government's like, if you're not going to pay taxes, then we better make sure you're actually doing it on the up and up. So that tax exempt status benefits the people who are donating. It doesn't really benefit the business. But if you want to have a business and make a profit, you should either be LLC or corporation. You could look at being a benefit corporation, and then you could even go a step further if you want to and be a certified B Corp, which just tells the public who you are and what you're doing. You also have some reporting requirements to keep that certification, but it has nothing to do with the IRS, has nothing to do with the state of California, has nothing to do with any other state entity. It's just a group of folks that got together and said, we want to certify corporations that are doing public good. Okay.
Wow, that's really good information. How often do you see people coming to you right now doing benefit corporations or certified B corporations?
Not very often, actually. Not very often, especially not in our community. I feel like we know nonprofits, or we know like the big evil corporations, right? We don't know, we don't really think about like you can still do good and make a profit at the same time. So, but benefit corporations, certified B Corp, and nonprofits just have more. They're all corporations that have more requirements, right? Reporting requirements and stuff. You got to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, got to have your tax person, in your books every month, making sure that you are doing it correctly, because, you don't want to lose that status and get shut down.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I keep hearing, okay, I want to start a nonprofit, I want to do this, but I never really hear the side of, okay, I want to actually have a corporation and for it to be a B Corp. I don't tend to hear about that a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you kind of talk about the different structures so people understand and know there's different options. One that may be better suited for them as well. So
yeah, right. And again, remember, nobody owns a nonprofit. It's for the community, right? So you may start it. There have been situations where people have started a nonprofit and they got themselves kicked off by the board of directors, right?
Yeah.
So you were really starting it and giving it up. If you want something that you want to be able to run for the rest of your life or until you get tired, then make it a regular corporation or an LLC or a benefit corporation or something like that.
Right.
I
And I
see
think
it.
it goes back to what you said about either the nonprofit or the evil corporation when there's all these different things kind of in between.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Like it's not binary. It's not one or the other. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between.
and I see you have a question
Hmm.
as well. Can you start off as an LLC and switch to a C Corp later?
Yeah, so that is a good question. People have changed their business structure. It's not an easy thing to do. So at the time, depending on what's going on in the business, I would either look and see, is it easier to start a new corporation and then have that and just transfer all of the assets into the name of the new corporation? Or is it actually easier to file the paperwork to transition it with the Secretary of State, right? It just depends on what's going on and what's all the stuff that would need to be done. So, yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's keep going. So, which is better? There isn't really a right or a wrong answer. There's just information to help you make a decision and to really think about what you want to do and where you want to go. And then we'll find a structure that fits that vision that you have. Okay, so there's no right or wrong answer. So also just be careful that you talk to the experts who know in this area, because your cousin will give you really well-meaning advice, right? Or your neighbor will give you really well-meaning advice, but if they're actually not an expert, if they're not an attorney who does this or a CPA who does this, their well-meaning advice could also be very wrong, well-meaning and incorrect. And we don't want you to have to go back and fix anything.
And very
All right.
expensive.
Yeah. So next steps, look at your business just like you would any other corporation. So take a step back for a second and look at it just as if you were going into, I don't know, Clorox tomorrow to get a job, right? What are the kinds of things that you would be looking for from Clorox as an employee? Would you be looking for a benefits plan? What about a health and wellness plan? What about some vacation time? Build all of that into your business. Don't keep looking at it like an extension of you. I mean, it is, right? Because you're the one who's creating it, but start to look at it like any other business and build it up just like that. Create a legal entity if you don't have one already. And if you do have one, just double check, make sure it's, serving you and your needs. Make sure your operating agreement or bylaws are airtight, update them if you need to, and just review them, become familiar with them. Put processes and checklists in place so you don't miss a deadline with the Secretary of State, the IRS, or California's very own Franchise Tax Board. And then gather a team of experts to help you. Learn about and take advantage of tax write-offs that are available to business owners, right? There's a whole bunch. So also find a CPA or a financial planner that is, or especially a CPA that is well-versed in your area. So the kind of CPA that I'm going to need as an attorney would be different than what I would need probably if I'm like running a shop on Etsy. Right? I have just different kinds of transactions, more transactions, sales tax, all of that stuff. So find someone who is well-versed in your specific niche. Think about the benefits, health, retirement, wellness that you'd like, and run them through your company. Anything that you pay for through your company, there's a portion of it that gets written off as a tax deductible expense. That's the cost of doing business. Even if you were just one person, think of yourself, you are the CEO of your business and start treating yourself like the CEO, right? Whether that means that you are buying a company car, leasing a company car, or, taking a staff retreat. Even if you're just one person, right? You can do that, run that through your business. Make a growth plan that includes legal and financial planning and also tax planning, right? Those two really go hand in hand, and they may not be the same person, but you can pull your team together and say like, meet with your financial planner, these folks right here, right? And say, this is where I'm trying to go in my future. What do I need to, I've got this business. I want to use it as a vehicle to help me get there. That's my plan, right? Use this business as a vehicle to help me get there. What do I need to get to, financial planner? And then the CPA can tell you what tax advantages or what tax strategy you can implement to help you get there. And then the attorney, of course, is going to help keep you legally safe and make sure that you know what's coming up on the legal side of things. And then I would say also, get a business coach, right? There's no shame in hiring someone who has been, who's a little bit further down the line than you to help you get to where you were trying to go. A lot of it you will learn through experience, but this entrepreneurship game is so up and down all the time. Emotionally up and down. The market is up and down. It's going to require a lot of you to keep going, but you can. And just like, when I played basketball, I had a coach. I remember my friends and I signed ourselves up for this 3-on-3 tournament. Remember the Hoop It Up tournaments from back in the day? I don't know if y'all remember that at all.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Great times, good times.
Yes, exactly. So my friends and I, it was 4 of us. We had to have one sub, right? Got out there and we were a hot mess. And then my dad came downtown to check us out. And then he started coaching us and we got in formation, right? We got it together. So same thing with a business coach. They can tell you some strategies. They can look at your business with a bird's eye view and tell you some things that you can't see because you are, all the way in it. So just to reiterate, LLCs and corporations are the foundation to building a business and leaving a legacy. And that's what we're talking about with taxes and with financial planning. Okay. And that's what I have for you today. That's all I have. I see there's one more question. Will I be able to get a link to see this again? Oh, that's not for me.
I'll answer that for you guys. Yes, you'll get a link. What we will do is we'll make sure we'll send you guys a link of this to everybody who have registered for this event. So if you've been on Eventbrite, if you have not yet re-registered, if you have not, and you'll be able to see this event, watch a recording of this, we can send you guys out the link for that.
Okay, cool. I see one more question. Where do you find coaches? So I would say, what kind of business are you in? I might have some ideas for you there. Instagram, I don't even know how to use Instagram as a search tool, but if you can find the right hashtags for the type of business that you're looking for, I would look there. I would reach out to, these folks here, reach out to the people, landlord, reach out to the people who are in your community, reach out maybe to other landlords, see if there are some associations and, ask, who are you guys listening to? Who are you talking to? Are there any, even if it's like a mastermind group or just a group that meets up on a regular basis to be able to talk about these things. I don't know if you listen to Bigger Pockets or who have read any of their books, but Bigger Pockets is a really big resource. They have different types of podcasts. They have different types of books, blogs. They've got financial tools and things like that. You might be able to find some folks within that community that might be able to coach you along as well.
Another good resource might also be your Small Business Development Center. I know they have one in every county across America, and that's actually a free resource. I really shouldn't say free, but it's using your tax dollars to help you. They have consultants for you in all different type of fields. They actually have a business plan course as well, which will help you out a lot. And so I'm a big advocate of just going to the SBDC in your local area. I know some are better than others, but that's a good point. There's one in every county for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a really good suggestion. Yeah, and part of it is just like reaching out like you just did here. So you just got a handful of suggestions, right? Keep asking people, keep asking, and don't be ashamed to ask people like, how do I, who do you talk to? Or where do you get information? What do I need to know? And keep asking. People give you answers.
So true.
Yeah.
And this was an excellent presentation. I was taking notes the whole time. And some just takeaways that I had is just, I liked how you said, build a business, leave a legacy, because I think oftentimes we get caught up in this hustle of our business, of that every day, and we're not thinking about succession planning and what that looks like more long-term. And really being able to separate your business from yourself, because they're not the same thing. And we need to get away from that because, like you said, there's different tax advantages from doing that. And also just from a liability standpoint, that becomes more important. And then the last takeaway I'll also say is when you say gather a team of experts. So you're not in it alone. I'm extremely excited about this session because, we have, me and Jason, who are financial advisors, and also, you as a business attorney, and you said like adding a CPA, and it's kind of like this triangle of how you can essentially plan, protect, and take advantage of like tax advantages as well. So you really need to create a solid team when it comes to your business, because you don't want to have to be on the other side of it where you're in trouble and now you're asking the experts, okay, what do I need to do?
Right.
It's important to have that up front so you can avoid those later down the line. So I thought that was excellent. Do we have any other questions that anyone would like to put in the chat or Q&A before we kind of wrap up?
And if you have questions, this is the best time to answer them. As you know, attorneys are highly expensive. They're usually about at least $150 an hour. So
at least
$150 an hour. So if you have a question, don't be scared. Take advantage of the free time you have before you have to go and find an attorney that you're going to give them $150. And as soon as you say one word, the clock starts, by the way.
Definitely. And if you or just want some more information, I hang out on Instagram mostly. So Asha Wilkerson ESQ on Instagram. And then my website is thewilkersonlawoffice.com. I probably don't update it as much as I should. Most of the information is going out on IG. So please feel free to connect with me over there and shoot me a message, send me an email, and I'll get you connected to some resources that you have. If anyone is interested in joining a community of entrepreneurs who are looking to build a business and leave a legacy, I created this group called Transcend for Black and Brown business owners. Not that it's exclusive to Black and Brown business owners, but centering the needs of our community. And so it includes the same thing that we were just talking about. So legal education from me. I brought in this month CPAs and financial advisors. Matthews Financial is coming in to talk about in next month, actually in April, to talk about building business credit. We've got someone else to talk about getting your foundation right so that you can accept money. We're talking about protecting intellectual property, hiring employees. So the goal with creating this community for entrepreneurs such as yourselves was to give you everything that you need in one place to build a really strong business foundation. So we talked about today, and then to grow your business, and then to do the financial planning once you've got those two things in place so you can leave your legacy, right? So I'm walking you through building your business and leaving your legacy. So if you want more information on that, you can check out my Instagram, or also just go to my website, thewilkersonlawoffice.com, and that will be available to you. Or just hit me up, send me a message.
Fantastic. Yes, we actually met on Instagram. So
yeah,
it's important. Like I said, you just have to reach out. If you have a need, if there's somebody that you want to meet, just reach out to them, send them a message. Most people are pretty nice and they reply back. So I'm glad, again, that everyone's able to have the resources to build those relationships as well. And it looks like we have a question that got submitted. So
the anonymous attendee wants to set up an anonymous LLC. I like your theme over here. To protect privacy, what aspects of setting up a business cannot be kept anonymous? Really, really good question. Permits, business credit card, etc. Yeah, that's a really good question. So when you set up your business with the Secretary of State, the owners will need to be put on the formation documents. Now, if you want more separation, you can have a business that owns a business, right? So you can have, like, if you don't want your name to be readily available on, let's say you're getting ready to sell I don't know, pizzas or something like that. And you could, if you wanted to, create two different entities, one that owns the pizza shop, right? One that owns the pizza shop, but somewhere down the line, they're going to be able to trace it back to the owners. Okay. And then another way to make it harder for people to find you is to use an agent for service of process, or a registered agent that's not yourself. You have the right to use yourself. You can use any human over the age of 18 that will accept legal documents on your behalf, but you could also use a corporation that is a registered agent with the Secretary of State. And so if someone needs to serve you documents or send you financial information or send you, tax information, it would go to your registered agent instead of you. For licenses and permits, that's a good question. So it depends on whether or not you can get the permit or the license in the name of the business, or if it has to be tied to an individual. So like, as for me as an attorney, I have to be individually licensed, right? But I think you could probably get like an alcohol permit. I think you actually have to have a business entity to be able to get an alcohol permit. I think you could at least get it in the name of the business entity. So some of that may, may just vary or depend on what kind of license or permit you have. Business credit card. Once you can build up your business credit history, then you can get business credit cards in the name of the business. So, but you might not be able to do that right away. So you might end up using your own personal credit card for business expenses or things like that, or having to co-sign for a business credit card, right? There are a couple of different options for you to do that as well. So I don't know that you could be totally anonymous unless you have multiple business owners in the business with you, and then you would be like on the internal documents as an owner, but not necessarily on the public paperwork. There are some options.
Thank you for the question, Anonymous. We appreciate
Yes. Thank you, Anonymous. All right. Any other questions? One more. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. You're quite welcome.
And also, I just wanted to add, for those of you who have registered on the Eventbrite link, we will also be sending out a link to with our contact information if you'd like to book a session. That's probably the best way to go. I know some of you had questions, and the best way to get an answer specific to you is to meet one-on-one, because you never know until you're face to face. Each situation is going to be different. So we will be sending that out if you did apply through the Eventbrite link on there. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Wilkerson. We really do appreciate you coming on tonight. There's really a lot of good tokens and golden gems that you put on here. I want to definitely say thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Thank you both for the invitation. I'm happy to see everybody in the chat, and yeah, we'll see you around the Business Owners Roundtable at some point, whenever we pick a round table and get together.
Right. Getting closer. It's getting a little bit closer. Sure. So I'm happy about that. All right. Well, thank you. And if you two want to stay on for a second after,
sure,
finish things off.
Perfect.